Statehouse Democrats have blasted Ohio State's response, calling it unnecessary force, and noting that Representative Munira Abdullahi, an OSU graduate who spoke at the April 25th rally, was injured. I also spoke with Dr. Pranav Jani, who's been critical of Senate Bill 83 as both an associate professor of English at Ohio State, as well as the president of the American Association of University Professors at OSU. He's also been a faculty advisor for Students for Justice in Palestine for 30 years. 20 of them at Ohio State, and has attended and spoken at protests.
Well, first of all, I was immensely proud of how brave these students have been. To my mind, they express what we call the shared values at Ohio State. They are speaking up against the deaths, let's say, of over 40,000 people now. I call it a genocide. Someone else may say this is not a genocide. I don't think we need to quibble on that question for this purpose. I would say if we look at that, if we look at what's happening, the current situation in Rafah, where it looks like an invasion is imminent and people are trapped, and we look at that situation, and then we see that there are students during finals getting no gain from it except the knowledge that they're speaking out when this kind of thing is happening in history. And they're doing it in utterly peaceful ways. They're following the words of leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., who talks about nonviolent direct action. They're putting that into practice. At that time, to see a university clamp down on such students, demonize them, criminalize them, jail them, treat them like they're someone we should be afraid of, that they're outside agitators and all of that, it's extremely painful. And it also makes me extremely angry. This is not how we should be treating students at Ohio State or anywhere else in the country.
Now, you have people who are looking at these demonstrations seeing something totally different. They think that some students are feeling threatened, that this is not a safe environment for some students, that some of these things and expressions have been anti-Semitic. What do you say to that?
I think that to call these demonstrations anti-Semitic is wrong. I think if there were anti-Semitism in slogans, in behavior and all of that, that would also be wrong. But what I'm seeing is groups like Jews for Justice Against Palestine at Ohio State standing with this actually quite diverse group of pro-Palestinian protesters and not leaving the group, but actually speaking and being part of it and standing their ground. I'm seeing people who have dedicated themselves to fighting racism, to fighting anti-Jewish hatred, to fighting these kinds of oppressions, right? DEI is our shorthand, but DEI doesn't even get to it. I'm talking about fighting for social justice, fighting for racial justice. Those of us who have dedicated our lives to that, who have Jewish students in our classrooms, who tolerate all different perspectives in our classrooms, in terms of discussion, in terms of research topics, in terms of the papers people write, who support our students regardless of their background. We would not tolerate, protests that were simply about hate or about demonizing any particular group of people. So what's happening is a conflation of criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. And I'm arguing, many people are arguing, Jewish Voice for Peace in Central Ohio is arguing that this is a weaponization of anti-Semitism. We should be able to criticize the policies of a nation state regardless of some of those kinds of questions. We should be able to look at what a nation state is doing and to say, this isn't right. And that's really what these students are doing.
And extending in that criticism, some student groups have been calling for divestment from Israel.
Right.
That's against state law. So
right.
That's not a demand right. that can be met.
Right. There's many different layers here, which I think we need discussion on. The first layer is this a just state law? Boycotting is part of the diversity of thought that people behind SB 83, et cetera, say that they're for. Boycotting Russian robots at Ohio State, is something that happened. We divested from Russian robots. There's little food robots that go around campus. We divested from Russian robots after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, right? When there's a political will, divestment happens. We divested from South Africa. And so this question of divestment in and of itself, first of all, I think the Ohio law itself is unjust because it restricts the freedom of speech of people and the diversity of thought of people who have a different point of view. But second of all, Ohio State is wrong when it says that since such a law exists, we can't, number one, listen to protesters' demands, which include opening the books, not simply divestment. We can't have a referendum, a student referendum on divestment. On March 1st, I believe, they pulled a referendum in which an active vote was going on. They pulled it from the undergraduate student government ballot, citing, well, there's a law, and so we can't divest. So what's happening is the fact of the law is being used to shut down any genuine debate about the question of divestment with regard to Israel. A student referendum that was pulled is a non-binding referendum. It doesn't automatically mean Ohio State divests. Why can't students have a vote on it? That's repression of students' voices. Talking about this protest as if, well, two sides of their mouth. On the one hand, they say content doesn't matter. This is about anti-camping policies, for which apparently they need to bring out snipers, right? This is about anti-camping, anti-noise. Sometimes they say content doesn't matter. It's about policies being broken. At other times, they talk about the content does matter. We can't do divestment anyway. So first of all, the question is, which is it? But second of all, why can't a university allow students to protest around something, even if it doesn't follow state law? We should be able to look at the matter intellectually as opposed to shut down speech ahead of any actual study of what the questions are around divestment.
Senator Serino said when it comes to these protests, he's looking at the possibility of maybe more legislation, and specifically, he believes that faculty members who are violating policies or breaking the law, who are instigating students to do either of those things, that they, tenured or not, should be terminated. And that he is certainly going to be taking a look at that.
Right.
As a faculty member, what do you think of that?
Well, Senator Serino has already come after me in op-eds with personal insults, saying that I'm an English professor but can't read. It's a racist insult, and he does that all the time. We know that he's been, and the whole political affiliations that he has, they've been about attacking professors all the time. There's that Nixon statement about professors really are the enemy, and this is the kind of attitude we have. What they don't know, they refuse to recognize around SB 83 or around this issue, is that professors are not like politicians. We don't stand there, give stump speeches that don't connect with people and simply use our power to push through whatever agenda we have. We believe in critical thinking. We believe in opening up the space for dialogue. We couldn't, with these youth today, if anyone thinks you can get by just by lecturing at them and that'll be that, forget about it. You have to engage them. You have to connect with their thoughts, with their experiences. They want to disagree with us. We love it when they do. We actually say, bring the disagreements, bring your critical thinking. You're going to be graded on your ability to think critically, etc., not just by, I don't want them to vomit whatever I've taught them and said. I ask them to test me, challenge me, and think on their own 2 feet. The same goes with the activists. The same goes with the activists. Serino and other people want to paint professors as the puppeteers, who are behind everything and doing everything. The reality is we follow the lead of the students. We support the students. The work we're doing right now, I'm going to be blunt about this. The work we're doing right now is not strategizing on the next action and telling students what to do. The work we're doing right now is you've got a hearing, right? Do you have a lawyer? Do you have support? All over the country, students are leading. Professors are, as individuals, as is our right, supporting those positions if we like. But as professors, we're there trying to help them as much as we can.
We just passed the 54th anniversary of the Kent State shootings, and there's obviously concern that things could escalate. Senator Serino says one of the concerns he has about escalation is if you give in to demands of students, that could lead to escalation. What are your thoughts when you think about escalation and, God forbid, the terrible situation from Kent State or any others coming back?
Yeah. The memory of the Kent State massacre will never leave us. That could have been Ohio State, because a few weeks before, there was a massive demonstration on the Oval, and a tank was rolling down Lane Avenue. And out of those demonstrations, though, we got things like Black Studies departments, Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies departments came as demands of those protesters. Those protesters did not bring the violence. The National Guard brought the violence. And that was ordered by university administrators. So I think that we should be worried about escalation and we should be worried about safety. The question is, who is it coming from?
Serino said there are enough Republican votes in the House to pass Senate Bill 83, which was narrowly voted out of committee in December. And he has said if it doesn't pass by the end of this year, he'll bring it back next session without concessions he made, such as dropping the ban on faculty strikes. Jani said he'll believe the votes are there to pass Senate Bill 83 when he sees it. And if it doesn't and is brought back, he says hundreds of opponents will once again come together to fight it.